Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the channel, the video, and life. I am Theology Matters. You can call me Eli. For my Oklahomans, The Anomaly. So, today is Friday, it's the 24th. Also, the day that the March for Life happens in probably 6 hours, because it's an extra hour over there. About 6 hours, the March for Life is going to begin in D.C. Thousands are going to be storming DC to shout about how they care about life. I said it again. JD Vance is supposedly going to be speaking with DeSantis, who has been marked for on the site. However, why? Why are we as pro-lifers doing a march for life in DC in a post-Roe world? And that is what we're going to get into right here. Give a little bit of a rebuttal, somewhat. But before I begin, the one thing I do want to mention, because I feel like it needs clarification, because when I say a rebuttal of the March for Life, what does that exactly mean? I am rebutting more of the march itself, not necessarily pro-life policies, that or the values that the march is trying to spread. It's more just the march and how it is being utilized, and the pro-life marketing that's kind of going off at this point. So, anyways, we're gonna get started. Before you can do that, there's a big red box. It says subscribe. Hopefully, you can read. All my followers do. Even if you don't, you click that button and it magically English. None of this gay French. As a guy who's made up of a lot of French, so yeah, but the German cancels out. So so anyways, hit that, hit some of the arrows. The other one. If you hit this one, I'm sad. You hit this one, I'm fine. But anyways, yeah. Um, let's start. So first, I'm going to write down something real quick. So first, I'm gonna tackle this via two paths. So there was the first path that I had, which was more of the why are we bringing this in? Why is this really necessary in a post-Roe world? And then my first was to take a look at the financials of the pro-life world. And gosh, I didn't know if I was gonna put this one in, and then I did the research and I went, "Shiz." So anyway, so let me bring up actually. Um, so first I'm doing live calculations. So, this was from Catholic News Agency. Catholic News. Hold on. News Agency. Yeah, News Agency. So they wrote this article, 2022? So this was covering the one before Roe actually died, but they were talking about the participants. And the reason that I bring up the participants is going to be factored in later. But so they said roughly that they got about 150,000 participants, which is pretty accurate. Which, if we go to later down, um, the road, the Students for Life of America stands by it, and I need that to be remembered, because when I talk about after I go through all this, it's going to come up clear. I did like, though, in this article, it's the march would be the last. Yeah, that turns to be false. So, anyways, um, now I'm going also through, because I was trying to find a number of participants, like how many people go to it, and going through just trying to figure out the numbers, I was able to find another site where it said supposedly there's about, a couple thousand. So 4,000 were at Ohio, and then about 5,500 were in Pennsylvania. So a couple thousands probably from every state, right? Um, so the reason that I bring that up, though, um, is this, because I was in college. Big surprise. Big surprise. I got 2 degrees for it and everything else. So I was in college, but I did join the Students for Life of America. I don't know if join. I went to meetings and other things. And they did advocate to go to the March for Life. Even my last year, which was, I graduated in May, so this is a couple months now. But I asked a friend who's currently still there. I asked him because he went, because I haven't been to the March for Life, but I asked him when he went, what was the cost, and he gave me, 500 or so. So from that, and the reason that the number of participants was needed is because we assume $500 for every participant. If we go within, 2022, we get about $75 million. And even I saw another article, which I don't have a picture of it. It was actually that there was that an average, I think it may have been from the Guardian, was about 100,000. So even if we do that, that's 50 million. So we're talking, quite a big chunk of change, 50 to 75 million for persons. And this is not necessarily including college students because people have to fly. Like I just checked American Airlines, and it's like right now to go to Washington is going to cost me about $509. And assuming that you prepped, it's probably going to cost you, $300-$400. I know when I was looking at plans for July, um, to go to Steubenville, it's going to cost me about 400 to get to Pennsylvania. And I live in Oklahoma, which is kind of in the center, right? So yeah, so about 50 million. Now, why would I bring up the money that is being spent for this march? Well, I'm glad you asked because you weren't there. Um, sorry. So the reason I bring this up is because I started doing math, which is as a aerospace and mechanical engineer, of course I did. So I was looking though because I'm thinking, and I'll get preemptively of the second reason is why are we doing it in DC when it's not necessary now? And I'll get to that later in the other section. But so I went on to Ballotopedia because of course I did. The thing about Ballotopedia is they had the 10. So back in November, there were 10 abortion amendments, questions, propositions, whatever other jargon you want to throw into it. And I did a video about that, talking about how we lost comparatively to Trump winning some of those states. Sorry. And so I went back to Ballotopedia to look at the stats, and I had no idea that there was campaign financing on it too, which is actually what got me into that. So, what I want to share with you is the numbers that were supposedly from the Ballotopedia. Now, I understand that these numbers may be wrong, and there's a section about this. So, but just bear with me for 5 minutes. So, if that. So in Arizona, supposedly from the excuse me. Oh, before I begin. So, I also made a coefficient somewhat called the death ratio. Yeah, that's gonna be a little bit foreshadowing. Death ratio, meaning that the pro-life or the pro-choice people divided by the pro-life people. Yeah, not great. Yeah. So in Arizona, where pro-lifers lost, we spent $1.3 million. Seems like a lot. Yeah, $33.6 million from the pro-choicers. Yeah, that's a death rate or a death ratio of 25.8. So Colorado, 0.55 million by pro-lifers, 8.06 million from the pro-choicers, and they won 14.7%, or a death ratio of 14.7. Florida, 13.09 million by pro-lifers, $111.33 million by the pro-choice. Life did win, however, it was what was it? We got 43. We lose 2.8%, and it would have passed. The death ratio was about an 8.5. Maryland got a death ratio of 3, 0.4 pro-lifers, and a pro-choice of 1.2 million. I don't know if you really need to go through this, but let me keep going just for a bit. Now, mind you, all this was cash. I did not count in the in-kind contributions because pro-choicers actually gained more than we, so these numbers would actually be skewed a bit. Their numbers would be higher and ours would barely gain any because we would put in like point 0.3 or so and they put like 1.1. So yeah, we'd be taking more L's. Where did I stop? Missouri, 1.89 million to 30.3 million. So the death ratio was about 3. Montana, we only did 0.14 or 184 million. They spent about 17.17 million. Yeah. Death ratio was about a 93.3. Nebraska, so there was technically 2 amendments, but they all were totaled together. So we did a 12.72 million. Good, because they only spent 13.24 million. So the death ratio is actually 1.04. And we actually won there. We won in Nebraska. New York, we spent 0.57 million dollars. They spent 5.48 million. About a 9.6 death ratio. Nevada, we didn't even spend a dime. I was surprised and shocked, like, no in kind, nothing. We were straight. We didn't even fight for Nevada. They spent 12.8 million though, and of course they won. And the death ratio is infinity because it's dividing by 0. Like, and I mean 0. I don't even mean like, it was a couple no dollar like $0, right? South Dakota was 0.96 million. Pro-choicers spent 0.65 million, and we won with a death ratio of 0.7. Now, in total of all these 10 races, we spent about $31.75 million. A death ratio, though, of 7.4, because the pro-choicers spent $233.83 million. And I took out Florida just to see, like, how it would be. Death ratio reduced down to an 8.6 or a 6.6. So, yeah, still heavy. So, if we go to, because of course I made graphs. So, this is the death ratio of everything. So, you can see that, if I actually switch it, sorry. So you can see here that everything kind of is kind of high. Maryland's at the 3, Nebraska's at a 1, and South Dakota is under a 1. But we can see Nevada is just, I put it at 100. It's technically all the way up here still, but it's insanely high, insanely high. Nebraska, South Dakota, they're small. New York, Missouri, all these are still kind of high. Now, why do I, though, want to mention that South Dakota and Nebraska are low? Is because when you do the something called a death point, which was basically whether or not they won. So we're having a binary system of no was or 0 was pro-life victory and pro-choice victory is a 1. So you can see here that only Nebraska and South Dakota, besides and then Florida, were victories. Now, the only difference that I would say is Florida's an outlier because technically, if we then go to the life percentage, Florida was was under the 50 because we needed at least a 50 normally. Because like even with Missouri, we got a little less than the 50 and lost because of that. Right? We needed above this 50 line. At Florida, we needed to be above this 40 line. So, but we got really close. And again, with some of this, I wish Missouri would fight back. So, but anyways, now why? So I bring this all up, right? And the reason that I kind of do that is because there's, we spent what, $31 million. And the pro-life cause, we spent about 31,000, right? Or million. We spent 32 million almost, right? And now we're spending millions of dollars into, it may not be an organization, right? It's like we're all gathering together, but it's like it's snowballing, and it went high. Like, it's just insane. Because when I went through this, I actually had to take a day. Like, I stopped doing this, and I actually was like pissed because I was like, you got to be kidding me. We're not spending any of the cash. And eventually I still thought about some of this stuff. And I'm like, how can I somewhat debunk this, right? Because I assume Ballotopedia is getting it from something like the committees that were, because there was also expenditures, which I assume is something from the committees that they have to uh, produce, and the ethics committee has to look at that type of stuff. So, but the one thing I did realize is a few things in this, because I understand that there is a lot of the math, right? But there could be some debunkers slash some things to consider. So first, Ballotopedia could be telling me the wrong information. I could be reading other data or false data, but I know when I was looking up something for Florida, they were getting, I think it was like October, and I think they were less than what was there. Um, so it could have grown by the time when it got closer to the race, and thus it became more of a blitzkrieg of send all the information to the people so they can vote. The other thing that I had to consider was the pro-life groups. We are not a one stage care group. I feel like I'm butchering that. People might understand. Like, we don't care about just when the baby's in the womb. We care about when the baby is out, during the pregnancy, post pregnancy, toddler. Like we have a natural protection of the dignity of life, right? Through practically all stages. Um, the pro-choicers basically kill the child and then they're done, right? It's just kill the child and move on. That's practically their only constraint is deal with the child. And then once it's done, it's over. The other thing I could say, because of course, looking back on these graphs, looking back on those graphs, you can see that, okay, well, if you look at, there's Florida, Nebraska, and South Dakota. We won in Nebraska, South Dakota, and Florida, but we can look and see the life percentage, and we can see, like, okay, well, Florida, we didn't get above the 50 and technically win, but we did win with here. And then if you look at the death ratios, it's like, okay, Missouri, or not Missouri, what was it? Florida was, still high, so we should have won in Missouri theoretically, but we didn't in Nebraska and South Dakota. So of course, the math doesn't necessarily. Oops, sorry. The math doesn't technically determine victory, although in a sampling of 10, it kind of does. It kind of said that the most that you can say with those assumingly, like, and of course there's more in the world than just the finances, right? But from what you can at least correlate from those two is that if the death ratio is less than or close to 1, then we probably have victory as pro-lifers. But again, that the mathematics doesn't necessarily validate victory. And the reason of that is because, and more from that, the citizens and the states, they're very different. Some of them. Sorry, gosh, I'm speaking fast. So, because every state is somewhat different. Like we won in. Sorry, I need a map. So we won in. Sorry, moving. We won in. Sorry, over here. We won in Nebraska and South Dakota. Right here. We won here and way down there. Florida, which is surrounded by, it's landlocked. It's landlocked by everyone. And I'm gonna be talking about this, so don't worry. But furthermore from this, it's like we have the South Dakota and Nebraska. They're all kind of next to each other. I'm surprised Texas is not with, or not Texas. Kansas is not with us, surprisingly. I know Missouri ain't with us anymore. But anyways, but the main point that I would say that is that people are somewhat different. Like, I understand New York, it's probably gonna fall. Um, we probably assume something like that, but Missouri, that was kind of surprising. And maybe that's why only like 2 million was spent, because we assumed it was ours. Even though, in Nebraska and South Dakota, where they overspent or closely did. So, and mind you, Nebraska had 2 amendments. So they had to worry about getting their amendment in, which I understand doesn't go all the way, but it's good enough for right now. It's better than better than the other one. Let's put it that way. Um, but yeah, because I think we won with a 51 on the death or the pro-choice amendment. It was 51 in our favor as pro-lifers. The other one was 55 in favor of us for the life amendment. But anyways, the other thing that I say is that a bunch of pro-choice people tend to have more wealthier clients. This would be probably also like the alphabet agencies and everything else of that, or not. Sorry, like the tech places and whatnot. So, and also just people who are normal Democrats. Democrats tend to have like the cash, right? Because of sorry, what the insiders trading or anything. Yeah, just weird things. But the other thing that I thought of was something I call the variable paradox. And the variable paradox is I don't know if this is something, but I'm calling basically if you're going to change any of the variables that I've been talking about today, it's not going to end well in either direction that you pull it. Because so first with the life calculations, right? Because I talk about okay, there's like 50-75 million dollars that we have now spent to do a march that has done absolutely zero moving of the needle. There is no laws being changed. There's, we could talk about people changing. It's a rally cry to lawmakers in DC who don't have the power anymore. So, but because if we talk with but anyway, to continue with, the variable paradox, if you want to critique my life calculations, if you're going to say, well, there's less people, so we have less money in the pro-life cause, then that's what it's going to point to. Because if we have less people showing up to the March for Life, then that's going to suggest that, okay, so there's less people there. That just means we are cash strapped compared to the pro-choice, which is somewhat of an issue. If you're going to say that, well, 500 is actually not the cost, and it's actually like 600, then you're saying that more money is being spent into a fruitless endeavor compared to pushing it towards making these amendments. Um, and lower cost is really I didn't include that one in here because lower cost you have there's got to be a base. Even from Oklahoma, it's probably going to take me about 3 to 4 gas tanks to get there, and that's going to cost me in Oklahoma gas. It's $40 a tank to fill up my car fully, and it's a Camry. So that's at least 4 times 40 is about so it'd be about 320 round trip, and that's just going to and from. So that's not stopping, maybe getting food and other things like that. And of course in Oklahoma, it's probably like what it might be like a 16, 17-hour drive. So that's gonna take a day. So and then you got to do that double. So you're probably stopping somewhere and getting a hotel. So that's also going to add money. And then the other thing for the life calculations was the higher attendance. If you're going to say that, then that means that we have more money that we have spent unwisely because more attendance means that there was more money spent by each individual. Thus, we have not 75. We don't have 75 million anymore. We have higher than 75 million. And my voice is breaking again because I keep speaking math. Anyways, Ballotopedia, I also talked about that with the variable paradox. If you're going to say that the higher death rate by either that the excuse me, that the pro-choice movement did did less um, or if there's a higher death rate, then that means that the pro-lifers just have no money. If there's a lower death rate, then we just suck at messaging because we took 7 L's and we only took 3 W's. And then on top of that, it's not a good. We're not doing well right now either. Sorry, good grief. I am speaking fast, so this video it's also riling me up a bit because it's just like good grief. But so anyway, so that's where I say the variable paradox. If we're actually going, because regardless of how you move the needle, it's always going to be something negative is going to hit us. So that was my first one. Financially, I don't see why we're spending millions of dollars in this when we have, if we really want to do something with, say, the 75 million, why are we doing a march to just show ourselves, because it really is more of a not rallying cry, but a show of force. Because this is the wrong. But the problem with having, sorry, I'm reading my notes and thinking too fast. This DC is the wrong place for the battle, because after Roe died, right? What happened to the pro-life movement? Now it wasn't one battle, right? The Dobbs decision resulted in the abortion ending at the federal level. Thus, this, Russian, the Russian dolls, the ones where it's like there's the big one. Yeah, we broke that with the Dobbs decision. You know what popped out of that? 50 other small ones that now we have to destroy. And some of us have. Let's be fair. Oklahoma, Texas, a lot of the South have beaten it. Florida beat it. Um, what was the other one? South Dakota, it beat it. Nebraska. Um, however, you know, now we have these 50-ish battles. So what is in DC? So nothing more than a show of force. Like, we're showing a force to DC who no longer cares. Because we got the Democrats who might listen. Problem with that is their party is very much the champion of abortion, right? Even more from that, there's even some Democrats who can't switch, even if they might feel that they are pro-life. They can't for the state that they are in, because if they did, it would be political suicide. And you're probably not going to get that. Political suicide will probably only come from one party. The other part, or let me put it this way: bravery is only going to come from one side. The other party is just going to be doing stupidity. And then we have Republicans shifted into two sides. We either have the party members and the pro-lifers. So the pro-lifers, they're like the people. They're the faithful people who have been with us since day one. The party members are those that dropped the pro-life cause the moment Dobbs died as well, because it became no longer politically advantageous to be pro-life. Like, it's kind of like when Boring from the Daily Wire was kind of saying that, well, in a post-Roe world, we could have been anti-abortion, but now because Roe has dropped, it's not necessarily something that we can do now. No. So, and this is where I say, if we're gonna do a march, take it to the states. I don't see why we're doing a national march to gather our forces at a place that doesn't need to really listen to us. The ones who need to listen are in 50 other states. And not even that, actually. Because I took a look. Guardian had this image of the current layout of the abortion. So the reds are, it's banned at some point. The legals is the blue, and then in flux, I've got that map. And I need to finish this up because I got out of water. So there's you don't need to count. I got about 25 legals. So that's half of the nation. Half of the nation, you can get an abortion, no questions asked. 19 are illegal at some point. I didn't go that deep, but 19 states currently ban abortion at some level, right? There are 6 in flux. The problem with the influx map is the fact that there's Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming, Arizona, Missouri, and Wisconsin. The problem is Montana just was one of the states mentioned, Arizona and Missouri. So these 3 I didn't look up, but these 3 we lost. So there's 28. So yeah, we're not, pro-lifers are not winning. And I don't know why we are going to DC to be doing what? And this is why I would say I think the pro-life cause, especially in a post-Roe world, we needed to do a review. I don't think what we were doing pre-Roe is going to work in post-Roe either. Because we're not exactly winning, right? We took 7 L's and we took 3 W's, but we also took 18 W's and 25 L's. Not even that, 28 because the other 3, right? So, yeah, we're not like what is there to celebrate that half our nation is because it is more half of the nation now. The 25 was half. Now it's more than half of those 3 extra. More than half the nation, you can get an abortion. What is there really to celebrate? And I understand some of this could be blackpilling. But the thing about blackpilling is you can only do so much of it until you actually have to get off your ass and do something. Now, I'm fortunately in sorry, excuse me. I'm fortunately in Oklahoma. So the fight here is over. And this is where I'll say to the 28 plus states and Wyoming, North Dakota, and Wisconsin, if applicable, your work begins. Like, the march isn't necessarily where you should be focusing your time. The march should only be done when we have the 50, when we can actually say we protect life, but we don't. It's nothing but a show. And that's why I say we need to be checking who is in the fight for the fight and who's in the fight to keep things status quo, to keep things balanced, and where the pro life, because the pro life industry is marketable. Because even the same way with conservative media, like a bunch of conservative media is reactionary to the left. What would happen in a day if the left just suddenly disappeared and were to come back tomorrow? So yeah, none of the political or the conservative pundits wouldn't have anything to talk about that day. There's nothing to react to. There's nothing to discuss except maybe what the Republicans may try to do, right? But I'm saying without the left, what is the right? And so that's where we're kind of in this where I'd say the pro-life is that I feel like there are some people, and this is just in general, I feel like there are some people who don't want to push the needle all the way over because in doing so, it means that they aren't needed anymore. It's in the same, like even the same way with some politicians. It's like how many politicians will come up to you, which I think is very funny as I'm trying to be one. How many politicians will come up to you and say, "I'm going to fix your problem"? Next election, say the same, and 2 decades later, say the same thing of, "I'm going to fix this," and it never gets fixed because they need to be able to say, "Well, I've been working on fixing X," right? Not Twitter, by the way. I mean, like X isn't a variable. So I think we need to do a review as pro-lifers, and then this is why I say I don't think the march is a right play. We're not in a victory. We took many L's, and we need to regroup and combat them. But again, as I said, I took this on 2 routes. There was the first route that I was gonna, or the second route slash first route in my head. It was, why are we doing it in DC? Send it to the states. The other route is the financials. We literally are on this march going to be spending about $75 million to march through DC, which has no power over abortion anymore. To do what? It's just, I don't know why. And it's just odd to me that we still do it. Um, yeah, I'm just mad because I don't want like I want us to have victory, but I don't think pro-lifers are going to have victory if we cannot get our crap together. Um and actually do something of significance rather than this big march which may or may not change the outcome. I feel like we should be reutilizing our resources because if we're going to have millions of dollars, right? Like if we took out Florida, let's say we removed Florida. I had what was it? It was the 18.66 million and 122, right? So let me bring that in real quick. Hold on. We're just gonna do this one and then I'm probably done. But calculator. So if we have what was it? 112.5 mil. So this is how much the pro-choicers spent for one election in 10 states, which mind you is about a fifth of our nation. So if we minus the besides Florida, this is besides Florida now. If we minus what we had done, it was 103.84. Now, if we do the 103.84 and we minus the 75, right? Okay, about 30 million, which, you know, dependent on how you do this math, um, 75 million could actually have provided a exact equal um death ratio of 1. Like, Colorado is 8 million, so there's 8 gone there. Maryland, we needed basically another million. Now, of course, Maryland was, we only took a quarter, so that probably was not gonna be enough. But, Montana was kinda surprising. Missouri, we got outspent 15 times, right? We got outspent quite a bit. And it's like dependent on where you where you choose, you know, the math, right? Like Missouri, what was it? I said 15. Yeah, about 15. This is about 15. We could have solved that. Let's look at Colorado. I said Colorado. Yeah, Colorado needed about 7 million now. South Dakota was fine. Nevada was about 12. Yeah, so I'm seeing if we did Colorado and Nevada was 12.8. Colorado, they spent about 8. So, about 21 million. So that's 2 states that we could have at least countered and still had change. We still have what, like 50 mil, which we could have put 20 into or 28 into Missouri. Nebraska is off by like half a mil. Like it's just it boggles my mind that we spent all this cash to march around, but yet we took so many L's that the money may have been better spent. Now, I understand elections, obviously things are different, but I think our priorities shouldn't be let's have a greeting and talk to each other and have these galas and everything else under the sun. I think we should be putting our efforts towards actual change in the realm of the politics. And maybe this is because I'm a bit of the politician in me. It's like actually get in the work. Because I don't agree a little bit with the culture or fix the culture, fix the world. I'm or fix the or the culture influences the law. I'm kind of somewhat of the reverse is the law can also fix the culture. And I feel like we should be doing both. Um, because I'm not saying that like the pro-life people don't do good work, but I am arguing that some of the work that we are doing is unwise for us to do with what we have. And again, as I mentioned earlier in one of my debunkers, it's like we spent money in different things in helping the pro-life with like cribs for young mothers, the ultrasounds, right? Um, for expecting mothers. So it's like I understand that we may not have the money compared to them, but looking at these races and the fact that, because let me show it one more time. Looking at these races and we were outspent so much, and we took basically L after L after L after L. It's insulting. And if you're not mad with me, and I will again, if my math is wrong, if Baldopedia is lying to me, which they could, in which case I could redo math or whatever. But again, this is where I say the variable paradox is going to come into play. Because if you're going to say that, well, the pro-lifers actually spent more money than that, we still lost. If you're going to tell me, well, in Arizona, we actually spent like 20 million, so it's 20 million to the 33, we still lost. And if you're gonna say we spoke less, then damn, that's just worse. Because that means we have no cash, which means we are getting brutalized in the realm of marketing. And financing. So yeah, and I think that's it. Yeah, because if it's lower and higher, or lower and higher for us, but now if the pro-choice were less, then now it's they were more efficient with their lower funds compared to us and could still win. So now again, I understand some of this math just purely on finances doesn't necessarily dictate that it works, but gosh, I'm just this angers me because of the fact that again, we're taking victory laps because I want to say if I listen, because more than likely today slash when I go to bed and everything, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna see tweets of people and their speeches, and the speeches are gonna say something more or less the lines of when Roe was defeated a little less than 3 years ago, we must continue this fight, and we're still brandishing the dead head of Roe for almost 3 years after. But we've still, again, let me show that map. But again, we are still not in victory. We are taking L's. We are taking L's. And again, this is where I say, I understand. I'm not dead pilling. Black pilling. There we are. I understand. I'm dead. I did it again. Black pilling. But the thing about being black pilled is then you get white pilled. It's kind of like the saying where it's like when you hit rock bottom, the only place you can go is up. So yeah, this is where we need to figure out what the hell we're actually doing and stick to a plan. And even then, I wouldn't say stick to a plan because when we have a plan, the left is going to work on that plan. So we kind of need an amoeba type plan, but we need to figure out what we need to. We need to be working in 28 plus states. I'll tell you that, and accept nothing but victory. And right now, we are accepting utter defeat because we are outnumbered now. Now, of course, in some states like Ohio or Utah, it's 15 to 18 weeks. So of course that's not good as well either. But and I understand some other places like it's typically more the coast and some in the center, and then the kind of the centerish pit of it is a bit mismatched. But gosh, I'm staring at this map. I'm getting angry. I want to throw things. I'm mad that this is where we are after what 2.5 maybe or 2 years, 2.5, 2.5 years, yeah, 2.5 years after Roe, and we are still like dead. And I understand it took what Roe was it 50, 60, 70? Wait, it was here in the 70s. So wasn't that the fifth? So wait, 20, 30, 30, 60-ish? Anyway. Um, so anyways, that's all I have for today. Sorry for this depressing tone in this video. And of course I released it during the day of the March for Life because of course we should be um we should be celebrating life, but we also need to be aware that death is very rampant in this country. So anyways, that's gonna do for me. Again, there's a red button. Yeah, I'm kind of done. I just want to upload this and get done. So, um, peace. Hope all the marchers have fun because the real work is going to begin when you get back to your states and start doing something.